This is LBC with Andrew Pearce. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
So these gangs have been operating in Rochdale, Derby, Rotherham, the most notorious centre of abuse probably, where more than 1,400 girls were sexually abused. We can now add Oxford, Peterborough, Aylesbury, and after the conclusion of a trial this week, Newcastle. We're up to 108 victims, aged as young as 13. 13 years old, for heaven's sake. Barely into puberty. 13 were abused routinely by 17 men. Several similar investigations are ongoing. They were predominantly Pakistani Muslims, and Trevor Phillips, the ex-head of the Equality Commission, says we've got to keep saying it and say it from the rooftops. He's right, isn't it? We should shout it from the rooftops. And if it's embarrassing for the Pakistani Muslim community, find these men and chuck them out and hand them over to the police. What do you think? 0345 6060 973. Abbas is in Redbridge. Hello, Abbas.
Hi there, good evening. Firstly, let me say, what these guys did clearly, to any rational or reasonable human being, is an absolute abomination. And quite frankly, I think they should never see the light of day.
Yeah.
But all I'm going to say really is that if we're going to report a story and we want to emphasise the fact that they were Pakistani and, in fact, that they were Muslims, then my question simply is that, number one, do we say white English Christian man raped a 12-year-old? We don't say it in that way, do we?
Well, Abbas, there's a reason why you're not comparing like with like. This is because these are gangs. These are gangs that are targeting white girls who they regard as trash. There are not white gangs being hauled before the courts for targeting white girls or Muslim girls or brown girls or any colour you like girls. This is why they are being named, and why Trevor Phillips is saying we've got to name them, because it's a fairly recent phenomenon. It's been going on since about 2004, and all the gangs that have been locked up for grooming young girls have been predominantly Pakistani Muslim, and the girls they've groomed are white. When there is a white gang doing the same, I trust me, the media will say the same.
Can I ask you whether you've done your research on this statement that you just made, or is it just your hunch?
No, I've done my research. Go on.
Okay, because there was a clinical psychologist that rang Ian Collins' show at 12 minutes past 10 last night.
Right.
And she clearly stated that she lectures on this particular subject of abuse and what have you all over the country. And she quoted government statistics that showed that actually, yes, in predominantly Asian or Muslim areas, you do find a prominent within that particular community. But when you look at the national statistics, now I'm going to download her show, because unlike most people, I would like to challenge those statistics, even though what she just suggests actually agrees with what I think.
Yeah.
Which is that on a scale, when you do a scale study throughout the country, there isn't this disparity. And in fact, she listed a case in Rotherham, or one of the areas up north, where there was a white gang shortly after that committed very similar crimes, and the media hardly touched on it. And she said even if you do Google searches, it's very difficult to get that story out. Now, all I'm saying to you, Andrew, is this. I have no problem. If we want to say they were Muslim, I'm Muslim.
Yeah.
If you want to say they were Muslim, they were Pakistani, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But number one, let's make it an equal playing field and list everyone's religion, everyone's race when they do that. And let's list all of these animals that do this, whether they are Pakistani and Muslim, or whether they're Christian, or whether Jew, Hindu, Sikh, white, Christian, atheist, or whatever. Let's list all of them.
Yeah,
and let's list them all equally.
Sure.
Because otherwise, what we end up with, you see, Andrew, is we end up with a perception that, you see, it's the Muslims again, and this is what their religion preaches, this is what they're supposed to do, they're supposed to attack the non-Muslim white girl. In Islam, if they were in an Islamic country and they abused a child, any child, raped someone, an adult or a child, you get the death penalty. So rather than excusing this or accepting this or condoning this, you get the most severe punishment that you can possibly get, which is that you would get the death penalty for raping a child or raping a woman. So, all this that we're hearing, that they were Muslim and practicing Muslims, I bet you most of these guys never even set foot inside a mosque.
I'm sure you may be right, Abbas, but I mean, I'm just looking. You know, the psychologist you referred to last night talked about this white gang. I think they operated in Oxford, but I'm just looking at the recent, the infamous cases: Derby, Rochdale, Rotherham, Oxford, Petersburg, Aylesbury, and now Newcastle. Each time they were predominantly Pakistani men. Let's take away the Muslim from it then. Let's say a group of Pakistani men, mates, neighbours, who were targeting almost 100% white girls, who they regarded as trash. They weren't targeting their own girls. They seem to think the white girls are up for it and they're fair game.
Look, Andrew, these are despicable, disgusting human beings, and they will target whoever they find as the easiest victim. And if they were to target Pakistani girls or Muslim girls, believe you me, you know exactly what's going to happen. And
Sure.
They know what's going to happen. They will get lynched.
Yeah.
And they know that. So these are cowards.
Good on you, Abbas, for saying that. That's right.
They're callous individuals. They're cowards. And they've gone for what they think are the easiest targets. Probably girls who may or may not have single parents. They might not have good support within the family.
Often in care. They were often in care.
Exactly. And so these are cowardly people, callous people who've picked on the weakest possible, innocent children that they could possibly find. And quite frankly, it's got nothing to do with their Islam or even them being Pakistan. My father, came to this country in 1956. How many cases did we hear of Asian gangs going around and doing these things from 1956? This is a recent thing. These guys are not religious. They're not true to their Pakistani culture or their religious culture or any other culture. They are perverts. And they deserve to get locked up for life, as far as I'm concerned.
Abbas, you make your point very well, and I think I rather agreed with what you said earlier. They deserve to be lynched. Sadly, they can't be. But who knows what will happen to them in prison? I'm not urging anyone to break the law, but if I read sometime that some of these guys get knocked about in prison, tough.